Hello and welcome to the SAP HANA Academy. I'm Dennis Van Kampen. In this video tutorial series we will discuss SAP HANA Express Edition. The topic of this video tutorial is backup databases. There are three ways how we can backup an SAP HANA database. We can do it on the web using HANA Cockpit, we can use the Eclipse plugin HANA Studio, or we could do it on the command line with the interactive terminal HTTP SQL. I will show you all three modes. Now, as we've seen in previous videos in this series, to use the web tooling, you need the full server plus app versions of the HANA Express VM. So I've started it up. Then just open a browser, HTTP, hostname, port, which is 8000, and then /SAP/HANA/admin/cockpit, and just log in as the system user. Now, the way it's been set up, the only apps that we have available in the cockpit are from the SAP HANA Database Administration Catalog, which does not include the backup app. So what you need to do is grant an additional role to the system user. And for this, I'll switch to HANA Studio. If you do not know how to connect HANA Studio to your VM, there are videos in this series which explain you how you can do this. And then just expand Security, Users, scroll down to the system user, double click, and then under granted roles add the plus, type in backup, and here we have the SAP HANA Backup Roles Administrator. Double click to select, and then deploy. We can see that the system user has been changed. And then if we return to our browser and simply reload the page, we now have the data backup tile from the SAP HANA Backup Catalog. Select the tile to open it, and then here below, click the button Create Backup. Note the estimated backup size. The required parameters are already set for us, so just click Backup to perform the backup. Now all this does is copy over files, so the time this will take depends on the size of the database. And when it's done, you can select the catalog again, and here we can see the details of our backup. You cannot restore a database using SAP HANA Cockpit, so this is pretty much all there is to it. Let me just point out that you can schedule backups as well, but for this you need to first enable the Access Job Scheduler. There are videos in the SAP HANA Academy in the playlist Backup and Recovery which show you how you can do that. Okay, let's close our browser and return to HANA Studio. As mentioned, HANA Studio is also an excellent tool to make database backups. Just double-click Backup here in the Systems view. That will open the Backup Editor. The overview page will show you the last successful data backup, which happens to be the backup we just made. And then using this icon here, we can open the Backup Wizard. Again, the required parameters are filled out for us automatically, so click Next and click Finish, and this will trigger a second backup. As we're taking a full database backup, it will take exactly the same amount of time. But note that you can also select differential or incremental as backup type. Now again, if you're not familiar with the different backup types, please check out the Backup and Recovery playlist. Now before we switch to command line, let's briefly look at how you would make a backup of a tenant database. It's completely the same, just define a connection to your tenant database in HANA Studio and then use the backup editor there. So you back up the systemdb from the systemdb connection and your tenantdb from your tenantdb connection. Now so far we have been using our system user to connect to HANA Cockpit and to connect to HANA Studio. If you're running the SAP HANA Express Edition VM for productive use, you would not want to use the system user, but work with less privileged users. And for example, in our case, for the database backups, what you do is you create a role. So here we have the role Backup Admin. The required system privileges are Backup Admin, Catalog Read, and Database Admin. This is when you want to use SAP HANA Studio, and Database Admin is required to back up additional tenants. For HANA Cockpit, you need Administrator from the SAP HANA Backup roles. So here we have our backup user, and it can open the backup editor, do administration of the backup catalog. For example, you can remove backups from the catalog. And of course, with this user, you could also make backups. if you want to run the backup commands on the command line, the recommendation is to use a user which is even less privileged, and all that's required for this user is the backup operator role. And here I'm creating the user with a very cryptic password, specifying that I do not want to change this upon first logon, and also disabling password lifetime for this user, because we'll be running this on the command line only typically by running some sort of backup script. So we'll never be prompted to change this. And as mentioned, the backup operating system privilege is all that's required. If you want to use Studio, this is where you would grant the system privilege. So let's open a terminal connection. There are videos in this playlist that show you how you can set this up. Then I'll switch to the home directory with a CD. And here we can see a very simple, very basic script that will perform a backup for us on the command line. There are a lot more sophisticated examples out there on the internet or attached to SAP notes. First, we need to set a backup prefix when we execute a backup using HANA Cockpit or HANA Studio. This will be done for us automatically. On the command line, you need to do this yourself. Otherwise, each new backup will overwrite the old one as they have the same name. Now, if that's fine with you, you can comment out these lines. But otherwise, use a unique prefix. The script captures a timestamp. It's using the date command for that. Then we're using a label scheduled, and we're appending the timestamp to this label. I'm specifying here the name as the tenant. If you have multiple tenants, just use multiple variables here. And then the time needed for backup, which is used in the sleep command and allows the backup to finish before we start zipping it up. Now typically you do not want to specify username and password on the command line or in scripts. So it's HTTP SQL -U and then the name of the key. And we've created the key using the HTTP user store command. Now, if you're not familiar how to do this, there's of course videos in the HANA Academy. It's very simple. So let's just copy and paste this line. Switch to terminal, paste in our command. HTTP user store -I will be interactive. So I'll be prompted to enter the password of the backup operator user, because again, you typically would not want to have this on the command line in any production environment. If you do not care about this, you can just leave the -I out, of course, and specify the password after the username. Then with the set command, we're going to specify the name of the key. I will be using here the name backup, and then it's hostname : port. And remember, we're working here with a multi-tenant database container system, so the default port is not 3 instance number 15, but 3 instance number 13. With HTTP user store list, we can print out the content of the file, but not of course the password. And just as we have seen previously with encryption management, it's using the same secure store on the file system technology with a store file and a key file. So we've created our key, then we can run the command with the key. So let's copy over our parameters and see if this works. And then you can run the backup command like this. And under backup data, we'll have the data backups of both the tenantDB and the systemDB. And in the systemDB folder, all the different backups are listed. Then using the tar command, you can bundle them up in a single zip file. And then, for example, use secure FTP or any FTP client to connect to your VM. Note that we put our zip file in /temp. If there's only one zip file, you can use a shortcut like this, otherwise specify the full file name. And this will copy over the zip file to your host. You can then remove the zip file from the temporary location. However, do not remove the actual backup itself. For this, you would use the backup tool. Go to the catalog, and here you can delete individual backups, both from the catalog and the file system, which is the only proper way how to do this. I've copied over the backup script to my home directory. Do not forget to set the execute flag for the script so you can run it. And if you set up shared folders for the VM, you can also zip the file directly to your host computer. And as a reminder, here for the VM under settings, you can enable shared folders. And I'm using here the downloads folder. You will find the video on how you can do this in this playlist. So let's run our script. First, we're backing up the system database. Then we're backing up the tenant database. Then we're waiting 10 seconds for the backup to complete. Then we're zipping up the system databases and our tenant database in a zip file, and we're putting them directly here on my host computer. Okay, so much for backing up databases on the SAP HANA Express VM. You can find more videos on our YouTube channel, SAP HANA Academy, so please subscribe. You can join us on our LinkedIn group or follow us on Twitter. And if you like this video, give it a thumb up. Okay, thank you for watching.